Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and the release of the new OP11 set for the English version of the One Piece card game is next week with the pre-release this week. I know a lot of people have been doing a lot of testing, a lot of deck building, and I want to kind of make this video on just kind of some insights going on into this meta. I've been collecting data on my website with all of the Japanese lists I've been able to find. We have almost 200 deck lists on here, which you guys can check out if you go on your own time. We're going to go over some specific deck lists on this video specifically if you guys want to see what decks I kind of think are going to be meta right now and what I think has some possibility into this format. But there's just a lot of decks to kind of talk about, and I'm really excited to see what this kind of format looks like as well. So a couple of things before we get started. First, I do want to thank Vampire for helping me with this. He's been sending me a lot of deck lists I've been topping the last couple of weeks, and I would not be able to have like half the deck list on this without him, so I do really appreciate that. Make sure to check out his YouTube for his own content as well. Also, some big things too is that one, this is the meta for Japan where Star Deck 22 is legal, which is the Whitebeard and Ace one, which came out at the beginning of May for Japan. We won't get this until September, so like OP12 kind of territory, which is kind of wild that it's so delayed. I'm not sure logistically why that might be the case, but it is what the case is. So we won't get these cards in English for a while, so that's kind of a difference. It doesn't come up for a lot of decks, but some of the decks do appreciate specifically the 7-drop Odin, and we'll talk about it when we get there. Also, we will be getting all of the new star decks at the release of OP11, which they won't get into OP12. So all the deck lists that we have right now are not with the new star deck stuff. So obviously some of these cards will change what the format looks like. It's to be determined on how much they will change. And we're going to talk about a couple decks that got support for it as well. As of this recording, we don't have officially released the Yamato and the Bonney decks, so we're not going to talk about those here, but I think those will be officially released at the end of the week too. So generally speaking, I don't think they're going to shake up too much for what this meta looks like. At least it's not going to change decks that have already topped in the Japanese format too. So there is also some pre and post restriction list stuff, right? Because April 1st was when the restriction list happened, but we didn't get the set release in like early March, late February. So if you guys care about that too, there's OP11 and then OP11 post if you guys want to see the differences between those, if you guys want to. But again, if you guys want any of these deck lists, you can find them on Eggman Events, which is linked in the description. I also do have the OP11 section, which is currently a little bit empty as of recording. We've got my team deck list, which is my single purple and blue Luffy, which you guys can check out. I did some testing with that today too. But generally speaking, I think there's just a lot to go over for this format. So we're going to go over a couple of deck lists. These are not the only leaders that I think are going to be good in this format in particular, but I think they're going to be some of the most common ones outright. And again, we will get some changes, I think, with the structure decks. We just don't know what they are going to be as this moment. So I'm going to make more content of that in the future too. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe so you get notifications for those future videos. And let's just jump on into the deck of the format. It is the blue and purple Luffy. So if I'm being a little bit pessimistic, I think most of this format will be revolving around purple leaders with the Straw Hat Pirates or Straw Hat's crew tag for the deck, right? Which is mostly the blue and purple Luffy, the new leader from this set. We've got the green and purple Luffy from EB02. We also have the purple Luffy from the OP05 set, so the oldie, but also we do have the new purple and black Luffy starter deck, which we will go over that probably in the next couple weeks too. But I think this deck also has a lot of contention to be in this format in particular. But generally speaking, if you don't know what this leader does, you will very shortly. But it's a 3-life 6K leader, which we've seen kind of these before. You may activate, this effect can be activated at the start of your turn. If you have 8 or more Dawn cards on your field, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Straw Hat crew type and add it to your hand, then place the rest at the top or bottom of your deck in any order. So I do have a lot of gameplay of me testing this if you guys want to find that link in the description, and I will be testing a lot of these other leaders in the next couple weeks too. But specifically for this one, how the ordering works is that you start your turn before you draw, before you add any Dawn, anything. If you have 8 or more Dawn, you get to look at the top card of your deck. You get to draw one of the Straw Hat crew cards, and then you get to rearrange it on the top or the bottom, but mostly on the top. And then you know what you're going to draw on the next turn, when you actually get to your draw phase as well. So very, very strong. It's not, you have to be at 8 Dawn before you ramp for turn. So if you're at 6 and you're going to 8, you don't get this effect. But if you're at 8 going to 10, you will get this effect. And that's just kind of how this works. There's a lot of great synergies with how to do that. You really do kind of care about ramping up because essentially you draw 2 cards towards the late game, which is kind of absurd for this game in general, especially as a 6k leader, especially a 6k leader that has access to Gum Gum Giant. And then also we do have kind of the Sanji, which is kind of the most value we get from this leader as well. So one, it's a Straw Hat Cruise, so we can look at the top 5 and grab it if we need to, but also just on play, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character with 9 or less cost, you get to play it, and then you place the rest at the bottom of your deck. So it can't be named Sanji, but the fact that you can use this to play out a Katakuri, one of the new cards, that's a really good blocker and helps you kind of re-ramp if you get a little bit, minus heavy. We have Linlin, which lets you heal 1 and then also get rid of opponent's card if you get something in their cost, which is really great. And then also the 9 cost Luffy from OP9. So a lot of great targets. The fact that you get to put 2 bodies out, the fact that we can ramp to Sanji, and the fact that we can use its effect without having to use any additional cards to set it up means that this deck just has a lot of value in a lot of matchups too. So I think there's just a lot of ways to build this. This is not a 50 for 50 deck. There's a lot of good tech cards for blue and purple in general. I think off the top of my head, I think Pudding is a really strong card for the deck if you want to run that card, but I don't think it's 100% necessary. I've seen a lot of different 2Ks being run here and there, a lot of different purple cards. There's also like God Thread as well. I've been seeing some play. And I think also the new Secret of Luffy from this set can be added as well. So don't think that this is the only way to build this deck. You're going to see a lot of different builds, I think, in the next couple of weeks. And this is going to be, I think, one of the most popular leaders in this format. So you better make sure you know how it works and how to play against it. But there it is. Next up, you got green and purple Luffy. So this is currently the strongest deck, I think, in the card game for the English version from EB02. We don't really change any cards inherently from this deck. I think we still do the same thing. One thing I've really noticed from the Japanese format at this time compared to us right now in EB02 is a couple of the tech cards changing based on what the meta looks like. And again, kind of blue and purple is the big bad deck for this format, so most decks are trying to figure out the best way to play against that specifically. So we don't see Electrical Luna, which we see pretty staple heavy at like 2 or 3 copies here in North America. We generally also don't see the green 4-drop Zoro as much either. I do see more copies of Luffy Taro in particular, this leader being able to, this card in this leader being able to play out a 5-drop Sanji Pudding, as well as this means that it's a little bit tricky for your opponent to interact with this. So I do think that's somewhat strong for those matchups. Other than that, we do have ways to ramp. Frankie being able to ramp in the deck really consistently, especially since we're going to be playing a lot against purple and blue Luffy, meaning that they get some we get to ramp very easily because they're always ramping, which is really strong as well. So other than that, I think this deck is in a still really good spot. I know a lot of people who are playing it right now, if they don't want to convert to the blue and purple Luffy, they can just stay on this one and I think find a lot of success with it as well. So here is the green and purple Luffy. Next up, we've got purple Luffy, which at the beginning of this format, this deck wasn't really played in Japan specifically. This was played previously, but I think people were kind of focusing on more of the newer purple Luffy cards. But generally speaking, this deck is still really, really good in this format. It's a deck that really appreciates the advantage you get from 8-drop Katakuri. The fact that we can ramp to this card pretty easily, I think is very strong for this deck too. The fact that we can have a blocker as an 8K, the fact that we can get a Dawn back means that, we can do some things where we can play like the 9-drop Luffy, and then we can also use 9-drop Luffy, be at 9 Dawn with 1 active, use Katakuri if we play the turn previously to get back up to the 10 Dawn, and then we can Giant without worrying about being at 8 Dawn next turn. So I think that's all very strong. I think Luffy Taro is still just a great kind of like double body producer in this deck too. It's a little bit, RNG heavy a lot of the time. And I've been seeing some builds that are kind of even like more control heavy. I think Linlin is still a good card for this deck too. And there's just a lot that I think purple Luffy has access to, which is really, really cool. So not much more to say about this one, but here is the purple Luffy, still very relevant in this as well. And again, we still have the 4th Luffy, purple Luffy, the black and purple one, which we'll talk about again more when we get closer to the format. And I do some testing with some builds with it just because it's the newest deck on the block. And I just don't have a deck list that I have any like actual testing with, so I don't want to put one out there. But it will be something I know a lot of people will be testing. So moving on, we do have a couple of newer leaders. So, blue and purple Luffy is one of the new leaders from the set, but there are some viable leaders, I think, from the other leaders from this set. Unfortunately, I don't really think that Jinbei or Shirahoshi is good enough right now, so I'm not including them in this list. If you guys think I'm wrong, let me know, and I would love to see your builds as well. And obviously, we can get some boosts from the green and yellow star decks for those as well. But we have Nami, which is a pretty exciting deck. I think there's some really cool things that this gets to do, right? So your turn once per turn. This This effect can be activated when a card is removed from your opponent's life. If you have 7 or less cards in your hand, you get to draw 1. This is anyway, attack damage, paying for cost, your life, your opponent's life. It's very easy for you to get these occasional draws, which is really nice. If you're, as long as you're at 7 or less life, 7 or less cards in hand, which is pretty generous, right? Pretty generous for you to be able to do that. So that is really helpful. Generally we see it if you're at like 3 or less cards or 5 or less cards in hand. So 7 or less cards is really great. Then also Dawn times 1 on opponent's attack once per turn. You can trash 1 card from your hand. This leader gets plus 2k power during this turn. So being able to be a 7k leader on defense, I also think is a really great way to play this Nami leader. You get some great advantage, and there's just some cool synergies I think you get with Nami in general, that also being like a yellow and blue leader, which is really cool. So one thing I will mention is that the list that I've been getting a little bit more success is running the new Odin card, which again, we won't have access to this until literally September. So we're not going to see this in here as well. So I do have a build here that is without that. This is from earlier in the format as well. But being able to use this to, we're playing a little bit more of a trigger heavy deck for playing bodies for like Charlotte Cracker, as well as the Kiko Nojo, the Satori, and the Dendro. All these being able to play these off life to get some value is really strong. We do have new cards like Zeus that help us get some removal, as well as old cards like Nojiko, which work for Nami leaders specifically, which this is a Nami leader, which is great. We still have like Linlin. This card just generically says that your opponent either loses a life and then we get to draw a card, or we get to just heal 1. So it's a good 50-50 for your opponent. Kind of this just like forces like a great value trade too, because it deals damage and then you get to draw a card and your opponent gets to lose a card. So that's great. 8-drop Luffy is also, I think, there's a good contender for like a backup when Odin's not in the format right now. The fact that it's an 8-drop with Rush inherently is fantastic. The when attacking skill is pretty good. And then being able to give a Rested Dawn to your leader or character means that you can give it to Nami, so you have like a way to activate their effect too. So generally speaking, I know a lot of people will be doing some testing with Nami. I think this is kind of like, it's just like a generic build, right? There's no like real combo for this deck besides just putting a lot of good blue and yellow cards together. You also can play like the Three Brothers stuff from Star Deck 13 in this leader, I think, pretty well, because there's a lot of ways to stack cards on top of your life and get some heals and stuff. So if that happens to be the case, I think that Nami could be a really good leader with that, because we could convert ourselves into a 9k leader using our leader ability if we're already a base 7k. And I think that's really interesting for a deck like this too. So not much more to say though, but here is the build for Nami, and we're going to see if this gets any relevancy in our OP11 format. We also have Katakuri, a new leader, which does take advantage of a lot of the purple cards. I do think like blue and purple Luffy does that a little bit better, but know that there are some Katakuri stands. We do just get some really great cards. One, we have this 1-drop Pudding, which is good in a lot of purple decks, right? So on play, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Big Mom Pirates type card with a cost of 2 or more, add it to your hand, then place the rest of the bottom of their deck in any order, and activate main Dawn -1. You can rest this to look at 1 card from the top of your opponent's deck. And the reason that's important is because of our leader ability. So when attacking our on opponent's attack once per turn, you can Dawn -1, look at the top card of your opponent's deck, then this leader gains plus 1k power during this battle. So being able to just get that, plus 1k once per turn. It does, Dawn -1 is a little bit expensive, but you can kind of mitigate that cost. The fact that we are a 5-life leader is great too. And kind of late game too, there's some times where we're just like, we're not going to be using the Dawn anyway, so let's better use the effect. So that's something I think that's really strong. This also, we have like a blocker. We have the 2-drop Katakuri. This is from OP08 for the Pudding deck, but actually, you can trash this character. If your leader has a Big Mom Pirates, play up to 1 Katakuri with a cost of 3 or more equal to the less than the number of Dawn you have on your opponent's field. So that means that you can play the 8-drop Katakuri for only 2 Dawn by using this one. So I think that's really great there too. We have the Struzen, Dawn times -1, and rest character declare and so honestly, like, we haven't really seen it yet, but half the kind of way we use this deck is that we have ways to look at the top of our opponent's deck, and then we have ways to use effects based on it. So Dawn times 1, rest this character, declare cost of your choice, and reveal 1 card from the top of your opponent's deck. If the real cost is the same as the declared cost, rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So it's a little bit expensive to do so. It's a 2k, right? But being able to like attack with this leader, look at the top card of our opponent's deck and get there is good. There are ways, if your opponent like uses Gum Gum Giant, are ways to draw cards off the top that you can kind of mess it up, but that it's kind of like a interesting kind of way to immediately use this. We also have like the Espira as well. It's a 5/7. Activate main once returned. Trash one card from your hand, declare cost of your choice, and reveal one card from the top of your opponent's deck. If the reveal cost is the same as the declared, draw one, and you get to ramp one. So that is great. It means that we can do something where we can, this is also activate main once per turn. So we get some cycle. If we get, and with Katakuri, right, we get to attack, look at the top card, get a 6k, and then we get to get it back. So that's, I think, very helpful too. And then we also have like the 8-drop, which we've talked about, with the 10-drop too. So this gets rush for this deck. On opponent's attack, once returned, Dom -5, you may declare a cost, reveal one card from the top of your opponent's deck. If the revealed has the same, give you up to one of your leaders plus 2k power for this turn. So it's Dom -5, which is a little bit expensive, but if we're able to get like these Sparrows out, we get to get that additional Dawn out. The fact that we've become a larger leader too. The only issue with this too is that like it's difficult to, so it's on opponent's attack, right? So it's not on our attack, but being able to use this, it's just like a little bit of expensive, right? We can go like Dawn -6, right? One from this effect to actually confirm what's on top of there, and then this to get the rest of the effects. So it's a little bit strong, but being expensive. But if we're not using our Dawn for anything else, that's kind of pretty good. So anyway, it's an interesting deck. I don't have a lot of testing with it, but there's some cool ways to use a lot of Dawn minuses to kind of cheat out some costs, and I think there's some cool ways to play this deck in general. So there we go. Next up, we do have our next deck, which is Koby, which I know a lot of people wanted this deck to really work, and it hasn't really gotten there quite yet. I don't really know if there's going to be any cards that we got from specifically the star decks that are going to help this deck either, but it's really interesting, and it's cool to see like all this red and black navy support, especially since I think that, half the set is really just black navy support, which I think some other leaders can maybe take advantage of. So kind of the main idea for this deck, though, is that we have Koby. Your sword type characters can attack characters on the turn which they're played, which is a really strong effect. Once per turn, if your navy type character with 7k base power or less would be removed from by your opponent's effect, you may place 3 cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order instead. So some key cards is that we do have the I'm going to be a Navy officer. To look at the top 3, it's kind of like it's my era, but for Navy stuff, right? Being able to trash 3 cards off the top of your deck, get one of them that's Navy type, and then you put 3 cards into your trash for 1 Dawn and get a search is really good. We do have just like a lot of like kind of mid to higher level Navy cards right now. The one good one is this Helmeppo. So on play, you may trash 1 card from your hand, draw 1, then play up to 1 sword type character with a cost of 8 or less from your trash, then place the one character played by this effect at the bottom of its owner's deck at the end of the turn. So it's kind of lengthy for how this works, right? This also, you can use this and you can use it to play out Sengoku, and then Sengoku can bring out another 4-drop. So there are some cool ways to do that. But the kind of big thing is this 8-drop Secret Rare Koby. So on play, up to 1 of your characters can also attack active characters during this turn. And then when attacking, you may place 2 cards in your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order. Up to 1 of your leaders or characters gain plus 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's turn. So again, a handful, but what you do is that you use Helmeppo to play out Koby, use Koby's effect to be able to attack into active characters if you need to, and then you can make this a 6k leader using your Koby's effect. All of that seems just really good. It's a lot of like moving things around, but it's a cool little combo that can get some pressure, and being able to attack active cards can be a pretty good thing too. So other than that, we just got a lot of generic support for Navy stuff. The fact that we have another Navy leader means that Sengoku can be used for this to get some early cycle, which is great, and it's just a cool deck. I don't know how, kind of how else to say it, but other than that, I think that this deck is in a good spot. Kind of. I know it's not really doing much right now. I know a lot of people said if this leader was kind of released a couple sets ago, it would be really strong, but in this current format, it's been a little bit lackluster. So other than that, here is the Koby list that I have here, and if someone makes this work, I'd love to hear it. I do really like some of these like alternative Navy decks that have been popping up. So there it is. Next up, you've got our kind of more aggressive decks that these are decks that are just meant to just really hard counter how the blue and purple Luffy works. The fact that it's only a 3-life leader means there's a lot to take advantage of it. And I think the best way to do so outright is Betty. I think this is probably the worst matchup for the deck in the format. And this deck has been around since OP05. It's been mildly here and there, right? It hasn't been doing, like, it's never really been consistently in any top cut, I think, since release. There's always been a deck where people are like, is this the meta where we can use Betty to punish the other decks? And I honestly think this is really the meta. This is finally, you know, after almost a year, over a year, almost 2 years of this deck being, or this leader being out in the game, they're like, finally, all right, this is the meta where Betty can be a little bit more consistent and be a little bit more in the meta itself. So part of the reason I think that is just because we are very aggressive. The Karasu making the blue and purple Luffy a 5k leader means that we can actually pressure them without any additional Dawn investment, which is really good. That deck also doesn't have great ways to get rid of Karasu easily if you play it on curve, so that's very, very strong. Other than that, we just have a lot of strong bodies. The way that we can do damage is really high, and the fact that even if they're like a a 6k base leader, like 8k attacks are just kind of difficult for decks to kind of get out of. So I really don't have that much to say about this deck, right? We're not really playing any new cards for it. I think the newest card we have is like the Sabo from EB02 if you really want to play it, which I saw in a couple builds, but this Betty's just good. If you want to just play a quick aggro game, Betty can do it. You either win, lose, fast either way, and there it is. We also do have all reliable OP01-001 Roronoa Zoro, which has the red animal package, which is pretty much had stapled into this deck since OP07, or sorry, is it 08 when this came out? OP08, sorry, when this came out last fall, which is just a strong archetype in general. This is still like the best leader to take advantage of it because it's just very generic. We do have like the new card from EB02, which is the another chopper, which can get some additional advantage there. But by and large, this is just a standard deck, right? There's nothing too crazy with how we do. We know what we look like, and that's really all I have to say about Zoro, right? This has just been an aggro deck since the conception of this game, and it's not going to change until maybe it rotates out this time next year. So I don't have much more to say. If you guys like playing Zoro, you already know who you are. Guess what? You can still play in this format. Congratulations. There you go. Next up, we've got a couple additional decks, and these are just kind of decks that have been around for a while, and I think are going to continue to be around for a while. So we've got Enel, which got a little bit of support in EB02, and no like great support in this set. We did get one additional card with the Zeus, so you may add one card from the top or bottom of your life to your hand KO up to one of your opponent's characters, the cost of 5 or less, and this is a 2k, right? There's no trigger with this card, which I think would be absurd if it had like the trigger to KO something 5 or less. So luckily we don't have that, but the fact that we get to use this to KO something, in worst case it's a 2k, I think is good for a lot of yellow decks. I know a lot of generic yellow decks are playing this. I know Nami's playing it because we get to KO something. We add a card from our life to our hand, which means we get an additional draw, which is really strong too. I know a lot of people theorize this for black and yellow Luffy, especially before the Gecko Moria and Ice Age ban, and you still could play with it, and we'll see if any of those decks kind of pop up in the next little bit too. But generally speaking, I think that Enel is in an okay spot. I do think that 10-drop Enel gets a lot of strength in this format potentially. If your opponent cannot remove this card, this is such a great card to be able to just get a lot of value. And I do think blue and purple Luffy can still outvalue you in the late game, especially if they set up some Sanjis and then have some like red rocks to be able to get rid of your 10-drop Enels. But it's not impossible. It is just a little bit uphill, I think, for something like Enel. But I think this deck will always be like mildly meta in any format in the near future. Just the way with how the leader effect works, it just means that sometimes you have like really good matchups into unsuspecting decks, and that's kind of just enough for how this deck works as is. So we don't really get that much new cards from yellow from this set outside of the Zeus, but you don't really need it. We know how this deck works, and here is Enel. And then we also have Rob Lucci, which admittedly when in April 1st when the restriction list hit, not a lot of people were playing Rob Lucci previously, but they really were not playing this deck with that new restriction list. But we've been seeing it kind of creep back a little bit with some more creative builds. This one in particular, and this one and many others I find in the OP11 format are running a lot of the 10-drop Kuzan from OP02. So this just having like a great stat line is a 10-drop 10k. The fact that it gives -5 cost to everything means that you get some really great removal. If you had like a Jack that you set up previously, so you can get rid of a 5 or less by playing out the Kuzan, and then you can get rid of an 8 or less with Jack, which turns into a 7 or less if you have the you attack with your a 9 or less if you have your leader attack, which you likely will for the turn. So that's really great. The fact that the Kuzan, the Laboons, the Shirahoshi, all these kind of cost reductions can add up all of a sudden, and you get some really good removal even without the Ice Age for it. So I know a lot of people have been playing this. The worst thing I think about 10-drop Kuzan is that that you do have to hard draw it because otherwise, we don't have any ways to find it outside of the 2-drop song events, which I'm still saying are kind of viable in this format. We'll see if I'm right or wrong with it, but we do play. So you play a card that can search Rebecca. How can that card be bad, right? But that aside, I do think that Lucci does have a lot going for it too. We do have a lot of, again, unparalleled removal game in this game in general. And if you're able to set up some really nasty like Kuzons or like Rob Lucci's and stuff, I think this deck can do a lot of, has a lot of strengths in this format too. Also, Monster and Rebecca, there's just some decks that have to just respect how much like infinite value you get from that. I will say the later in the game, though, Rob Lucci will just lose the fact that blue-purple Luffy draws 2 cards every turn, but Monstery still does get a lot of value, and you do have to kind of watch out for it. So not much more to say about Rob Lucci, but I do think it's still viable. So good job, Rob Lucci players. You are still able to play your deck if you want to in this next format. And then the last 3 decks we're going to talk about are Bonney, Yamato, and Marshall.D.Teach. These are lists that topped without any of the new Star Deck stuff. I know that some of the Star Deck stuff, hasn't been officially released for Yamato and for Bonney quite yet, but assuming that maybe they're not that impactful, right? I still think that these leaders are still very good. We do know the Teach as of recording, so you can check out what lists look like right now, and then what we can change them with the new Star Deck stuff in particular, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So generally speaking, though, I think Bonney does have a lot of great interaction with blue and purple Luffy, and the fact that you do have Hody Jones. I think Hody Jones is like the epitome of like being able to, this counters this deck so hard, right? The fact that you can, they have to respect that Hody Jones can come down and, rest 2 of their Dawn and make it so you can't use Gum Gum Giant is enough for, I think, Hody and any other real like aggressive green deck to exist, because of how that really shuts down a lot of the defensive properties from a blue and purple Luffy. So I think that's something that's very strong as well. We do also have 8-drop Kid. Again, like most decks of like blue and purple Luffy, unless they have like Red Rock, don't have a way to answer this card outside of just attacking Kid, which is still good, right? They still have to respect this card, but even then, it does kind of slow down a lot of decks too. I think 10-drop Dofi is really great as well. I do also like 5-drop Bonney. I think that's something that helps out a lot. I think Electrical Luna is a bit of a greedy card in this format. It does help you against green-purple and some other decks too, but I think blue-purple Luffy really doesn't have a lot of cards that fall in range for that, so that's something that's impactful as well. And then we do just kind of have our blockers and what have yous. So in general, I think Bonney's in a really good spot in this format too. If we get some good cards from the new Star Deck, there might be ways to increase it, but generally speaking, I don't think Bonney was a deck that needed some new cards, so I think it's going to thrive no matter what in this kind of new format too. So there it is. Next up, we've got Yamato, and this has been, Yamato's been like one of the weirder leaders kind of history-wise in my mind, right? I know when this card was spoiled in OP06 like a year and a half ago, people are like, man, double attack on a leader and then it has an effect to give 2 Dawn. That's insane. This is going to be the best deck in the format. People got to watch out. And then it gets like the occasional top here and there, but it's never been like super meta viable, right? I would never put it in anywhere, above like tier 2 in any time since the release, a year plus ago. So I think that it is a deck that could get a boost from the new structure decks too, so that could be really strong. We do get some new tools already from OP11 when it was played in Japan, where you do get some great stuff. We do have like the 2-drop Coponge Beige, which I know a lot of people are playing in green yellow Law as well, being able to get a blocker but also have some protection as well if needed. We have Zeus, which we kind of talked about. We can play like more of like a mild fortress build right now with 8-drop Kid. The fact that we can play out Beige or Rosinante, both are just pretty much blockers that give protection to our 8-drop Kid is, I think, very impactful in a lot of ways. The fact that we are one of the best Hody Jones players in this game, right? The fact that we play Hody Jones and we can give it 2 more Dawn is really, really nice. Kind of tied with Smoker, the green and red one. We have a lot of ways to be defensive and be like kind of obnoxious. Basil Hawkins is really good with or without giving it blocker. And I think this deck can be really scary, especially like if we like get like spoilers, like your opponent's got 3 life and our leader's hitting for 2 damage. That adds up very quickly, right? That's very, very quick amount of damage. If your opponent doesn't respect that Yamato can swing, on turn 2 a 9k, or on 5 Dawn they can hit you for 10k double damage, you can lose the game like very quickly if you're not very, cognizant of that. So I think that's something that's very strong with Yamato potentially. If the new structure deck support is really good for it, I could see it be a really good counter for the blue and purple Luffy, and that might be something that changes dramatically from our format compared to Japan's. But here's a list that was able to top during Japan's OP11 format, and there we go. And then last we've got Teach, and Teach almost like I've seen a lot of builds that are just specifically this 50. Teach has never been really a build diversity leader, right? We are so focused on playing these Blackbeard pirate cards, a little bit of tech here and there, but we are such a centralized deck in a lot of ways. So this is definitely a deck though that can change more than a lot of others. I think before we talk about the structure deck stuff, which again, we do have these cards here, we have them revealed. There are quite a few good cards here as well that will probably find their way into the deck, including the Kuzan, right? This having blocker and then being able to on KOs go into another body is super good. So that does help you get there, and it's a 1K and is really, really nice. Having this blocker as well, which it's generally just a 4/6 blocker with counter, right? That's the slow answer for, or the quick answer for specifically Teach with how it works, and then also the 7-drop Marshall.D.Teach, right? It's kind of like Jack, but it's also in archetype, and it KOs any character with a cost of 3 or less instead of Jack's, which means that you do get to use as a pop your 1-drops if you need to, which means you can get some additional card draw. But specifically speaking, kind of another tech card for us is the Caribou. So this is a 2K counter, and then blocker, and on play you trash 2 cards from your hand. But guess what? We don't have on plays. This is just a 1-drop blocker that's also a 2K, which is unheard of for this game. So just a really, really good card for this deck, and you really appreciate having that, which means that we kind of have like a little bit more 2Ks in potential if we need to. We're only playing stronger in Caribou. We're not playing the Shiryu. So having having less searchable 2Ks is a little bit troublesome, but not as much. Just having blockers, I think blocker 1-drops are going to be really, really strong in this format in particular. So other than that, we do have a lot of reduction, right? We've got the Laboon and Tempest Kick. The only real way to get that reduction, right, we can use if we have Doku out early, we can Tempest Kick or Laboon to get rid of a 4 or 5 cost respectfully. If we have Von Augur, we can get rid of a larger cost too. So it's a little bit tricky, right? We don't have any like the finger pistol, right, or like even the black hole in these builds, because you just don't usually hit as much with it. So it's a little bit tough to kind of put those cards in our decks when your opponents are playing like 7 cost and higher very consistently. So other than that, I think Teach is going to be pretty viable. I think the new starter deck will probably help at least make some new builds that people are going to be testing. We'll see how good they are in particular, but I think it's still like a valid deck in this format as well. So there we go. But that's going to be it for this one. We've been talking about this for like 30 minutes or so. You guys can find again all these deck lists on my website, Eggman Events, which is linked in the description. I will continue to update this as we get through the format, so it looks a little bit emptier outside of this table right now, but I'll be continuing to update it as the days go on. So that's going to be it for me. Let me know what you guys think about this format right now. I'm really looking forward to seeing what it turns into, and I'll catch you all next time.